Welcome back to 15 Minutes With. Right now, we're going to be talking about a subject that's near and dear to my heart, which was the moving of the emerging technologies for the enterprise conference that Chariot does every year from a live event to an online live event. We wanted to just talk about the process and the decision-making points, sort of to archive, why we did what we did in this particular time. So joining me are 2 out of 3 of this 4-person team. So Ken Rimple, who continues to be in his car as his haven.
I haven't left.
And Becca Refford. Currently we're missing Mark Shvets, who's my co-chair. And hopefully we'll be able to have an interview with him in the future. So just to give everybody sort of a sense of the timeline that happened, we made the decision to switch 45 days out from our scheduled time of April 14th and 15th. So we were pretty early on in the switch. Really, we were one of the first to make that decision. People were canceling conferences that were closer in, and we still had the luxury of having a little bit of time. Really, when we had to make a decision was when one of our largest block of attendees from a company that's local to Philadelphia decided that they were no longer allowing their attendees, their employees to come to events that were non-essential. So it was going to be 20% of attendees that we were going to have to refund money. So that gave us the point where we knew we had to make a decision. And we gathered the team. And I really wanted us to go live. So Ken, when I came to you with that crazy idea, what did you think first?
Well, there's this quote in Lethal Weapon. And the quote is by the one guy who doesn't really want to do the war anymore. Like he's tired of the game. He's like, I'm getting too old for this job. And that was the first thing I thought. I'm like, oh no, another weird pivot. But I really did feel that it was really important. We had taken the 1-year break and we felt the weight of the community on us when we got back again the year before in 2019. So I was all in. I figured, you know what, let's get this working. You had had your experience. I don't know if you want to talk about your experience with Hey Summit, which is the tool that we used that kind of led us down this road.
Yeah. So one of the reasons I felt confident that we could move was I had done an online conference with this conference management system called Hey Summit, which I had no idea actually existed. I didn't realize there were online conference management systems. So in the fall, I had this experience being a speaker at an event. Now, I had taped my talk, but had kept it in the back of my mind that we were going to do something with it, and was able to pull that card out. So maybe we should go through some of the steps that were some of our decision points. So before we even road tested Hey Summit to see what was really behind it, we had to go and get the okay from our speakers, because there was no point going down this path if the speakers didn't want to do that. And just to give our audience who may not be familiar with what we do normally, we're dealing with 32 speakers, sometimes more if we're doing panels, but this case it was 32. We're over a 2-day period that we're running 2 keynotes and then 3, I'll call them rooms since we weren't going to actually have rooms, with 5 talks over the day, over those 3 rooms, so 15 talks. It's an undertaking. So we were able to get acknowledgement from 95% of them that some of them weren't happy, but they were willing to go along with this because it was still early. all of them prefer to be in front of an audience. But we were fortunate that the speakers were willing to come with us. So that was step one. Step two came with the evaluation of Hay Summit, as well as the video players, the way, whether it's Zoom or there was one called Big Marker. So we had to evaluate both of them, and we had to do that quickly. So that's something that Ken and I took on. And Ken, what were some of the things that you were looking for from this experience? So if you, from the AV side, the technical side, like, would give you the confidence that we could, do this as smoothly as possible?
Sure. So the first thing was I went and did a search for conference management software. And I had to unpack whether the conference management software did its own hosting of video or whether it was using something like Zoom. So you take that one Big Marker, for example. Big Marker would integrate with different players, or different conference tools. So Zoom was one of them, and there were a couple of others. And there were a couple of other pieces of software we just threw out of hand because they were ridiculously expensive, or served a giant market, and we weren't that giant market. So the very first thing I had to do was just figure out, like, what is this space like? We had all used Zoom for like regular meetings. We'd use Slack and its online stuff, and for years, lots of other different conference software. So, I finally figured out, Zoom is just like a core piece of a lot of these things. So we said, all right, fine, Zoom is one thing. We'll put that aside and say we know what Zoom is, and we know we can do webinars in Zoom, but Zoom doesn't have an e-commerce solution that lets you put something online to register people, right? So the evaluation to me was a features evaluation first. Did it let you register? Did it let you then watch the videos after registration? Did it have any kind of, room communication? We looked at like other tools for like the room chatter, and we'll talk later. We settled on Slack, which was great. But we were even looking at that. So it was throw everything against the wall, see what sticks. And it kept coming back to the fact that in this space, which is relatively nascent and just getting going, it seemed like Hay Summit was the best of the group that we could pick for the time we have. Right. And because you had some experience with it, you knew that it was actually a product that existed in the real world.
The other thing that was sort of a plus was even though they are a newer software, new company out there, their communication was great. And as we did some evaluations, that's something that I always want to be aware of. What does that sales process look like? How are they going to support us when things don't go well? So those are some things. We also, did a call with Zoom after we decided that Hay Summit, we felt confident that they could stand up. We did a call with Zoom, and honestly, we did a call with Big Marker, and there was no comparison in terms of like the support that we felt we were going to get from Zoom. And that sales call was smooth.
And I'll ask Becca to comment about like the actual day of and running support, but we both worked on that evaluation. Right. And on those sessions. And I completely agree with you. Like from the Zoom perspective, we spent as much time as we wanted showing all the features we weren't aware of in the webinar edition, and lots of tips. We really didn't need that much support from Zoom themselves.
We really didn't.
No, we didn't have any of those issues where people were hacking in. I was scared about things like that because you never know. And I'm always a worrywart. It's part of being, the person on the AV side has to work, right? But with Free Marker and Hay Summit, or I should say Hay Summit, that's right. It all gets confusing after a while. But Hay Summit was really good about the pre-sales process. And the one thing about them, their feature set isn't perfect. They're definitely a growing new company. Yep. They have some things they need to do, but we have a committed community of people that are technical, which really helps, have used Zoom before, and want to see this work. So we had so much support from the community to overlook the weirdness and put up with anything odd just to get the talks going. And I think it worked really well from that perspective.
Mm-hmm. So the other thing that we looked at with Hay Summit was our ability to brand the site as Philly ETE, which I think was important. Um, we looked at the ticketing platform because we had already had an issue about ticketing from moving from the live to online. So having that stable ticketing platform, and then the ease of moving things over. So before I'll turn it over to Becca, because she was instrumental in getting the look and feel, I want to talk just about the communications that we had to do. So we made the decision as a team. So it wasn't just the three of us. Mark was involved, our CEO was involved, to say, okay, this is what we're going to do. We decided to offer either a refund, which we were legally, we had to, but not only legally, but ethically, we felt. We were 44 days out, 43 days out at that point. Our refund policy was 30 days out. So we wanted to make sure that we were able, and look, here comes Mark.
Hey,
all right,
Mark.
Hey,
just so you know, we're in the space right now. We are recording. So welcome.
Glad to be here.
Okay.
Fashionably late, Mark. Fashionably late. It's okay.
So we are. So we have decided at this point, Mark, just to catch you up in our story, we've made this decision as a team to move forward after we did the evaluation. We decide that we're going to offer either a refund or a credit and charge $99 instead of the $450 early bird price or the $625 regular price. We also offered the option, well, it's not the option, the benefit of having access to the content before everybody else for a period of time, because that's what was special. We had to give some sort of hook. And moving the people over, communicating out why we were doing what we were doing was very important. So that was a key piece to this. I don't want to forget the technology is extremely important, but how we communicated to our audience, I think, was really very important. And we were all involved in, putting that message together. And even though we had some people who they felt at that point as attendees of the regular format, they didn't want to move over because they don't like online experience, or they felt that they weren't going to like online experience, they were still very grateful that we were thinking about the community, that we were providing an option, and they were supportive of what we were doing, which I really felt was, it was just something that was a way for us to give back, even if they weren't attending.
Well, I think that was kind of the theme of this whole thing, right? It started with skepticism from a lot of people and turned into pleasant surprise by the end. Everyone was just kind of like, oh yeah, we'll roll with this. But by the end of the 2 days, I think that the response was just overwhelmingly fantastic.
So Becca, why don't we talk a little bit before we jump to the end? Why don't we talk a little bit about, the move over to Hey Summit in terms of the branding, so that there was some continuity in terms of the look and the feel, and what you felt was important, from that standpoint.
Yeah, so we had always relied on WordPress. We made a custom solution at Chariot to manage all the talks and the speakers. So obviously with WordPress, we could do whatever we wanted in terms of design. And Hey Summit, we were a little bit limited, but we were still able to transfer over the main look and feel and branding of ETE, which was really important to us. Especially since Hey Summit ended up being the single meeting place for pretty much everyone involved in this process. So the attendees were going there, the speakers were going there, and the organizers were practically living there as well. So it was important to make it feel like an ETE home. And I think Hey Summit did a nice job of allowing room for that.